guys. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Robbie from Sequoia. Thank you guys for coming, partner close with Wes, who I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of the emails, but really kind of wanted to talk about the event that we have coming up tonight and just kind of where this has come from, and just excited to see so many of you guys here tonight. I think obviously as we work with a lot of the companies here, one of the main topics that's coming up these days more and more is maternity and paternity, and what are people doing around that, as well as leave policies. So we really wanted to bring together some expert speakers who I'm going to introduce in a second, but also Kalina Markley, who a lot of you may know, runs health and well-being, and she's our director at Sequoia, and gets the privilege to really work and meet with a lot of different companies that are doing innovative things in the space. So we're self-selecting a lot of those around, so if you might have had a chance to go back to the booth, I'm going to let Kalina quickly introduce them. I'm going to introduce the speaker, and we're going to have a couple good chats, and then hang around a little bit more if you guys want to have some more food and drink, and we'll go from there. So here's Kalina.
Thank you. So as Robbie said, I help a lot of our clients and some of you in the audience set up wellness programs and additional benefits. So what I kind of tried to do as an additional add-on to this event, so you can leave with some information to start your own programs, is we have a few vendors here that are both in the back, in the little kitchen area, and then right in that little side corner when you guys walk out. And I really recommend to stop by really quickly to go through who each one is. So we have Janeda Clark. She is right by the One Login Waters. And she is a parent educator. She also does both early workshops for younger children, as well as a really popular topic, which is cyber savvy. So if you have any people with a little bit older kids that might be dabbling on the internet, they do classes on how to handle that as well. Day One Babies also here. They are great. They're a resource center, one here, one in Palo Alto, that helps new parents with both prenatal and postpartum programs, classes, seminars. Some really helpful things they've been working with our clients on are setting up new moms rooms. Some of you might have your first parent. So they've been really helpful at that. And then likewise coming up with gifts for, say that you have a new mom going on maternity or returning, some really helpful things for that. We also have Milk Stork here, which is an awesome creative one. Basically what they do is they're a breast milk delivery service for business and traveling moms. So that if you do have any moms that are breastfeeding and they have to travel, they allow you to ship your breast milk home, which is really awesome. Leave Logic is also here. So they are a company that's helping people navigate family leave, understand the policies, and also help basically understand their company time and policies. So they'll be in the back too. Hop Skip Drive is in the corner over there, and they are a caregiving ride service for folks who want to shuttle their kids around but go with a certified nanny, as opposed to maybe any driver off the streets. And so a qualified service, which is great, and they offer programs for corporations to offer credits and things like that too. Next to them is Emissaries. So they're a recruiting agency that specializes specifically in paternal leave, so can help with that in a nationwide presence for finding people to fill those. And then last but not least, in that room back there, we have Instacare, who's a program for expecting parents. What they do is they basically offer in-home training, so it's a really helpful way if you have someone that indicates that they or their spouse is going on leave. They'll send specialists out to the house to do training programs with them. And then Urban Sitter, they're a website that connects with social networks, so allows you to really find folks either within your circle of friends, coworkers, or any groups you might be part of. And they've done some really cool services to offer credits for if you have a company party or you have new hires, or especially a hot topic is the emergency backup daycare. So wake up and a kid's sick, and that's some money that you can have to allow your parents to still make it to work. And then lastly, they couldn't make it because they're on the East Coast, but the Dave Thomas Foundation has sent some awesome packets on if you're exploring an adoption-friendly workplace. It's a cool checklist that you can pick up, and it just allows you to have some stats about how you can start a program and allow people to do that. So really wanted there to be, there'll be great information up here, but also have you walk away with some things for any size workplace, because whether you're small or big, these are some awesome vendors you should connect with. So, and I'll be here for questions too in the back if any of you have any.
Great. Thank you, Kalina. And also quickly before we get started, I don't want to forget, thank you to One Login for hosting tonight. I think that deserves a quick round of applause. Appreciate, obviously, you guys hosting at the space, and again, just allowing us to have these types of events. So we're all around. I think you might have seen Wes. If you guys are ever interested, we want to run more and more of these events. Let us know. We're always looking for great space. So thank you again, One Login. in an interest of time, I'm not going to go into too much detail about each speaker. I think we'll probably introduce as they come forward. But we are really, really excited about tonight. I think we self-selected this panel, and thank you to the panel as well, as I'll introduce as they come forward. All of them gave a lot of time to really prep for this to make sure not everyone's talking about the same thing. I think we're really trying to look at this from actually people that are sitting in your same position as HR people, hearing kind of what they're doing, and I'll kick it over to Kara to start here in a second. But then also, what are you doing from the employee side? What are the things that they need to be aware of from the employer side? And what are some of the innovative things that are happening? So I think each presentation is going to touch a lot on this. We're also going to talk a little bit about the new leave policies in SF in New York and kind of how that relates to you guys. So we've put a lot of time, effort into this. I think all the speakers are going to touch on the types of things that we're really hearing from you guys are important in this space, and everyone will be around after for questions as well. But we will probably hold questions till after, and all the presenters said they'd be happy to answer if you guys came up then. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Kara, who will be our first speaker. Kara heads up people at Planet Labs, and I will just say I'm working very closely with her, really at the forefront, I think, and the HR and people movement to making sure that we're really looking at this topic. So excited to have you here tonight. Thank you, Kara.
Thanks, Robbie. So good evening to everybody here. I prepared some notes so I wouldn't forget anything important. You know that we in HR really like the details. I'm thrilled to be here tonight because I want to speak about what I believe is one of the key influencers on the future of our society in general. I think we are in a very privileged position as HR people to really help drive forward these programs that are going to be critical to our economic future as well as the future of our children and families. So that might sound heavy, but when we talk about parental leave, we're talking about more than a policy that makes good business sense. We're talking about practices that have significant impact on how modern families will invest in the next generation and what the future of work will look like as we continue to set the trend here in Silicon Valley on those different elements. So I wanted to talk a little bit about me. Why not? I'm standing up here. But I think I have something of a unique and interesting journey that I'd like to share with you that has helped inform how I've approached establishing parental leave and what I've learned about parental leaves at this stage of my career. So I'm sure we are all well versed in FMLA here and what it offers in California, 12 weeks of unpaid leave. And SDI offering 55% of the pay for that time off. Now, despite the policy being the bare minimum and that it has a host of loopholes in it and that it's 23 years old, consider that we're in a privileged position here in California, being one of only 2 states, that of California and New Jersey, that actually offered a state-paid element to this. And that amounts to 13% of U.S. employees that actually have access to paid maternity benefits, which also translates to only 1 in 4 American mothers having more than 2 weeks of leave to take with after a birth of a child. Now, whether you are a mother or know a mother or a father, 2 weeks is such a short amount of time to recover from the actual physical act of having a child, as well as to be able to establish a stable family environment for that child. And that's my personal belief and why I think this is really important. As HR professionals in trend-setting Silicon Valley, I believe we can do better than that. Some of the giants around us, including Netflix, Adobe, Amazon, are already setting the trend. My personal journey is giving me insight into what I believe leave can become for all of us. So I found out I was pregnant for the first time while my company was going through an acquisition. And I was offered a new job at a bigger company, and as many of all of us, I believe here, have decided that the big corporate HR is not necessarily the route we wanted to take. So I knew that that's how I felt about that for myself. And my past exposure to other working mothers over the 10 plus years of HR work that I had done to that point caused me to assume that I would only be hired as a consultant. It really didn't cross my mind to think that at 5 months pregnant that I would go in and someone would want me to be a full-time HR person for 4 months and then take a leave and then come back. And I'd actually never seen a round-bellied woman come in confident for that interview and knowing she was going to nail it and then make the hire. So in retrospect, shame on me. And also in retrospect, shame on the environment that we've created where we don't have that happening more often. But I started talking to my friends when I was thinking about my transition, and there were plenty of horror stories as well, one of which is a friend shared her story of maternity leave at her startup, which included her company went through an acquisition as well. She was about to begin maternity leave, and she was head of HR for the company that was being acquired, and she was accidentally sent her new offer letter for the new company before all of that had been finalized. Great news, too, initially. She was given a promotion to a higher level HR position in the new company. Super exciting. Right? Well, unfortunately, the promotion had been crossed out on her offer letter. And instead, the new HR director had written maternity leave in the on the side of her offer letter. And when she did finally receive her offer letter, it was at her same level. So needless to say, and we all know from HR the legal ramifications, she chose not to take the legal route, but we all know that these types of things happen whether they're as explicit as someone crossing out a promotion and writing maternity leave, or us supporting an environment that would take maternity leave into consideration in terms of next steps for someone that initially we thought would be a high performer. So with this in mind, my next step was to talk to some CEOs of my networks to talk about potentially working for them in a consultant capacity. And to my surprise, the questions came up. Why are you only open to consulting? Why not just continue on, take your leave, and return to work? I underestimated Bay Area technology leaders. Out of the 10, 9 of them told me that they supported families and thought it would be great to have an executive demonstrating an effort to balance work and family, and wanted to bring me in and wanted to make this work for their organization. And this was 4 years ago, before we have all the headlines around this. I'd had one CEO talk to me for about half an hour about how his sister worked in investment banking, and she had a really difficult time taking the time she needed when she first had her child, and he was going to do it differently at his company. I learned through this process that we have many leaders out there that many of us work for who understand the real value of effective leaves, that there is will and intention in our local environment, and that now people just need to understand the policies and processes at work. And this is super exciting because it puts all of us in this room in a very, again, privileged position to make change happen within the scope of our work. I also learned personally as well as professionally that HR people have the power to make the change. We have to understand what parents need, and we need to get the big picture. Our old view that HR's job is ensuring compliance to the inadequate national standards that have been put in place doesn't work anymore. What do we do as HR professionals to undermine the future of work, where we know things are heading? We're on the front lines, yet sometimes we, including myself, spend as much effort to support the old structures while we should be evolving our practices. So as part of how we think about our approach to parental leave, I encourage you to be the example in thinking forward about these things. And my hope is to give you, through this conversation and the conversation of the people that follow me, some tools to make that change happen. So after I had so many supportive conversations with these CEOs and inspiring leaders, I changed my mind about what was possible for me as a pregnant woman. Instead of just consulting at 5 months pregnant, I started at Pinterest as the company's first HR person. I had a very supportive boss and coworkers, and through my experience, I learned what a pregnant person needs to be successful in the work environment, and those things were flexibility, self-confidence, and confidence from the coworkers from around me that I could get the job done. However, change doesn't come easily, and I had remnants of my old thinking. I had planned only to take 8 weeks of leave. Sorry. 8 months, very different. 8 weeks of leave. One of my coworkers approached me, one of the senior leaders on the recruiting side, and said, "Look, you're not setting a good example. I'm trying to recruit people in here. I'm trying to tell the story about how we are a family-friendly environment, and having our HR lead take 8 weeks when our when we offer much more is not helpful. And wow, flip my mind again. So if I was going to create a community of success for all of our employees, including parents, I had to start walking the walk of HR best practices. And again, I encourage everyone here to see what your role in HR really means. And that when fathers and mothers look to the company to see what message they're sending about families, they're often looking at HR people first because we're the ones that set the tone. So at Pinterest, I was off full-time for 12 weeks, and I needed every minute of it, shockingly. No, for my first baby, definitely. Sleep deprivation, a resurgence, and in some cases, a stabilization of hormones and physical and neurological changes, they all amount to a very busy schedule, not to mention you're taking care of a helpless, brand new human. This transition isn't unique to my experience, and it's as old as humanity. So it's a little concerning to me that now fewer parents than ever are taking the time needed to adjust to their new roles. The most recent survey that's come out is Harvard Business School survey of graduates of Harvard Business School, where they see a trend that baby boomers, from baby boomers taking 44%, 44% of their baby boomer classes taking time off, more than 6 months for new baby leave. They see a substantial drop. This is what I want to get to. In terms of now, Gen Xers are now 28%. So again, the trend is there. What's worse is that only 2% of men in both of these age groups had done the same. And that's devastatingly low, considering the studies in recent years. Brand new study that just came out showing that new fathers need rest just as much as new mothers do. It's been found that in 2013, the study showed us that new fathers get less sleep overall than new mothers, less than 6 hours a day. And I think we need to think about this as HR leaders, because new fathers are the ones that we are often asking to come back sooner than new mothers and move back into positions where they're expected to return to work and perform in intense environments where the decisions they make are mission critical for our businesses. Again, we need to ask ourselves, does this set our employees and our companies up for success? So again, when thinking about crafting your leave and being a very forward-thinking HR person, I encourage you to ensure that your leaves, both primary and secondary caregivers, should be covered equally in leave policies. So I returned to Pinterest after my leave and was supported as a mother with a flexible schedule and meaningful work. The next time I was pregnant 2 years later, I had just started a job at Planet Labs. This was my new hire picture at Planet Labs. That is my daughter Corinne in my belly at 5 months. I knew it was the right place for me because as I talked to my new CEO, Will, he's very British. I pointed out that, in fact, I was pregnant. That's what was in this belly. And he said, "Oh, yes." And I'll use my horrible British accent here to tell you what the experience was like. What is that leave requirement here in the U.S.? 6 months or something awful like that? Another breath of fresh air. This reminded me that we have great examples outside of the U.S. of what programs could be for new parents, and these are thriving economies that have found a way to make this work as well. So at that point at Planet Labs, I again had the opportunity to implement a leave policy with what I'd learned. I made a policy that was 16 weeks for both mothers and fathers, paid at 100%. Now, that 4-week increase in paid leave I instituted wasn't arbitrary. Companies have seen a lot of good come from demonstrating even a small increase in maximum weeks paid. And we learned that from Google themselves that instituted this in 2007, that they had 50% greater retention in women employees when it increased paid maternity leave from 12 to 18 weeks in 2007. And if anyone here knows anyone at Google, you know they don't do anything without a lot of data and a lot of confidence that it's going to make them more money in the long term. So think about the ROI on the retention rate that they have here from simply adding 6 more weeks of leave. And think about that for yourself and your company. So something you need to think about is you need to make sure that you make the leave long enough that your company and your employee gets ROI, that your employee is coming back fully capable to move back into your workforce and be there for the longer term. And it's a simple practice. It's a simple trade-off. What I did for my executives when I was attempting to share the information about why it's important to have leave was put together an ROI calculation. And I used SHRM's numbers for the cost to the company of replacing an employee. And I have to tell you, this is an extremely conservative number. So we know in Silicon Valley turnover is high. Use SHRM's national their national numbers. Example salary, just looking at a potential engineer for $100K. You know as well as I do how hard it is to actually get an engineer for $100K, but we'll live in a fantasy world for a minute. The cost of replacing that individual contributor is about 32.5% conservatively. The breakdown, like I said, was from SHRM. I'm happy to share that with you all as well. For maternity leave, if you run the numbers, you're saving your company $15,000 by giving your mothers a 16-week fully paid leave. You're saving your company $7,000 for giving a fully paid paternity leave. So when people ask you why they should do this, you can first say you're welcome. That I'm really here to stabilize our business and make sure that we're creating an environment of retention and high performance, and this is how we do it. Again, I'm happy to share this with you. I'll give you my email at the end. I have a second sheet that's even more exciting, which is a breakdown of all the SHRM elements that go into that retention number. So the business case is easily made. I want to make that clear that I'm not living in a fantasy land. Again, there's a reason that these large companies are doing this. It's a numbers game as much as it's the right thing to do. Fast Company recently published stats from case study for this from the Center for Economic and Policy Research showing that 89% of California business owners surveyed reported either positive or no negative effects on productivity, turnover, or morale from an employee taking a paid family leave. And if any of you all were old enough, like I was, to remember when paid family leave was first implemented and all the uproar around it and how companies were going to shutter their doors, this is an amazing number. And the other piece is all of you all are HR people that know that this is a really hard number to come by from a consensus standpoint, that doing something really positively at this level gets an 89% approval rating. So again, easy win for HR people. In taking some last steps, I'm gonna make a few suggestions here beyond just the pieces that I put together. In order to really ensure a level of retention and to make sure your ROI pans out, I'm going to encourage you to take the lead in keeping your new parents connected on their terms to the work community while they're out. And I think that this is something that not enough companies do, and it's a huge low-hanging fruit that we can be involved with. Having some interaction with work can be good for new parents. I believe that not all new mothers or new fathers need or want to be sequestered. New parenthood can actually be a lonely thing. We know that as HR people, they should control their engagement. They get to decide how much they are involved within the work community. But as HR people, we're used to drawing a firm line between work and leave. I challenge you to think differently about that. How can you instead be a conduit to positive engagement between new parents and their work community? How can you help new parents engage on their own terms? How can you stay connected to that employee? There are great meal delivery programs, co-worker visits, other programs that keep people in the loop. People can even decide that they want to take on one project, a lightweight project potentially when they're gone. And we have an example here tonight with Instacare and Hello World that we'll hear about that we've implemented at Planet Labs that helps maintain support for the work family while their parents are at home. So in addition to finding ways to stay connected to that employee while they're out, and show them that there is a level of support and there really is a work family to come back to, I'm going to suggest that you include in your policy a ramp back to work. Intuitively, we know that more time for a mother and newborn to bond is better for all aspects of health, physically, emotional, and mental. But there's also a great deal of research that shows us that there are strong correlations between paid time away from work and reduced infant mortality in healthier babies. So we're talking about building a stronger future society, starting with the family. It's also been found, interestingly enough, that women who take paid leave, their fully paid leave, are 93% more likely to return to work within a year postpartum than those who don't. Flash back to the Google stat that I gave you there. And there are plenty of examples of flexible ramp-up policies for new parents returning to work. Across the bay at Pixar, both new mothers and fathers are encouraged to design their own, what they call phase-back plans, once their leave has been exhausted. With a few formal guidelines, employees can balance their needs at home with that of their teams to customize their own work schedule. And an example of that is I have a friend who worked there. She was working on Inside Out, and she had a child at peak of production for Inside Out, and she did a job share in coming back to work. And it worked for everyone. And she's still at Pixar 2 years later, and Inside Out won an Oscar, so there you go. So finally, I'm just going to encourage you to be that change, to think about the different elements of a truly effective leave, both from the business and strategic side, as well as what's the right thing to do for our employees and our families. Now that I've experienced what it takes to create a successful leave program and the impact it has on the talent that we are all responsible for, I'm committed to advocating for parental leave for all families in America. It's not difficult to see how HR is best positioned to be a part of this change. What's more, HR and tech can make it happen simply by looking within our own industry and looking at each other for examples of this. We can talk to our HR consultants that we work with. We have Sheston Swartley from Connery Consulting. She's been a partner to me in learning more about parental leave as well. I can throw lots more stats, more data to support this research to you. But more important to me is the picture of the society that we want to build and the future of work that we want to build. I don't say it lightly that as HR professionals, we share a true responsibility to our businesses to rethink how we invest in our employees at every stage in their professional and personal development. If not, we're going to find ourselves losing them more quickly than we can train new ones. So again, this is both a strategic as well as an ethical imperative as far as I'm concerned. So just wanted to review some of the things that I would suggest you think about as you either revisit your parental leave policies or as you're creating your parental leave policies. These are those different elements. And finally, I wanted to share the picture of the reason I'm standing up here in an HR position and not just, working a few hours a week in HR. It's because I had people support me through this process. Feel free to email me directly if you have any other questions, if you have any needs as it relates to helping to build out a parental leave policy that makes sense for your organization, that supports the families you need. And I also wanted to introduce Natalie. Natalie, I've never been good with your last name. Devitsakis? Whoa, there you go. Good try. So Natalie's here. She's part of Paid Leave US, which is a newly formed advocacy group that can provide resources to individuals and companies that are looking to build out these programs. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kara, for sharing your story, obviously, and also just giving such insight on how people can bring this back to their company. And I know, obviously, the amount of times we've worked together and how passionate you are on this. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm sure Kara would be happy to speak with people after as well. So we're going to now switch over to Anna Stephanie, who's the CEO of Leave Logic, who's going to do a bit of a conversation about talking about how you can look at this in your company and start to institute things as well, but also dive a bit into some of the different leave policies that we've been seeing in place from the States and SF and New York as well. So thank you.
Hi, good evening. Just want to make sure all my stuff is working here. Fantastic. So hello, I'm Anna Stephanie, founder and CEO of Leave Logic. We're a Seattle-based startup making family leave easier on companies and employees. And we're using technology to do that. Just a brief background on how I got there. I too is from a personal story. So I had my first son while living abroad in Germany. And when I went to tell my manager I was going to take leave, he said, you know, you get 3 years job protected leave, 1 year government stipend leave. And I said, whoa, wait a second. I'm American, I'll be back in 6 months. And I wasn't back in 6 months. Fast forward, getting ready to have my second son back here in the United States, working for the same company. I went to ask my colleagues, what do I need to do? How does this work here? And I was told, keep it hidden as long as possible. I said, what? I didn't understand what it was. And, the baby? It's just a baby. And I realized that not having access to information is power, right? And the way I felt, right, it was the perfect A/B test. Right? It was, I felt supported. It was normal. There was a federal policy. I came back here, a large tech firm, interestingly enough. I knew that HR wanted to do the right thing, but there wasn't the system and tools in order to provide it. And that's why I founded Leave Logic. So sorry to deviate a little bit there, just to give you some context. And what we're going to talk about is how knowledge is powerful. So I want to level set because you guys are doing a lot in your roles, more than just leave. You know, you don't have 255 people doing leave administration like a large e-commerce firm that we know has. You are doing multiple things in your roles. And so we want to take this opportunity to level set about some of the information, how to think about paid leave, because we throw around a lot of terms, primary, secondary. So we're going to get into what is paid leave and how does it fit into your overall package, the world perspective, what's happening in the United States, and what are some of the best practices and considerations in moving forward. And this deck is meant to be shared, and I've been informed it will be shared. So I am not going to read everything on here. This is a thing that you can reference and think about how all this fits in maps. So please don't be scared by this. So basically, what is paid leave, right? We talk about it, but it can mean many things. Maternity leave tends to be the most common when it's leave to take care of yourself or a family member. In addition, there's also bonding leave for newborns. And another way to think about this is we have this hierarchy of family medical leave. So we have the medical leave for self, and how we think about paid behind that can be through a short-term disability policy or actual paid time off through a company's policy. And then we have family care leave to care for members of your family. So we have parental leave to care for a newborn or newly adopted, and that can break out into paternity or maternity leave or primary or secondary. And then we have leave to care for other family members. This is all covered under FMLA. And other payment mechanisms are sick leave, vacation leave, paid time off, disability coverage. And what we want to note is that in terms of disability, sometimes there's a waiting period before that employee can get paid. It all gets very complicated. But just to help you think about, okay, is this for an individual's own serious health condition like recovering from birth, or is this for bonding leave to take care of a child? And separating those will keep you more compliant. World perspective, I gave you a little bit about Germany, but the United States and Papua New Guinea are the only two countries left in the world who do not have a federally mandated paid leave policy. And so it's not the only industrialized country, it's us and Papua New Guinea, that's it. So let's just get real about that, and then let's not even go into paternity leave. And then this is something, now we'll go into paternity leave. So this is an EEOC ruling in 2014 that said if you're offering bonding leave to, let's say, a female employee, right, on top of the disability leave, you also need to offer that to the dads, or whatever definition of primary or secondary. And if not, that is actually non-compliant and could cause a complaint. And so this is a surprise for a lot of people, and how how to implement the disability recovery leave, the family medical leave over the bonding leave. So keep that in mind, and there's some references at the end of this deck for that. And so essentially leave options to be inclusive of all groups. That's the official word from the EEOC. And then what's been happening, you may have heard in New York and San Francisco, right, recently. And so what I'm going to call out here is how each state has approached these differently. How many of you have offices in New York? So I don't spend, okay, there we go. Awesome. So New York's going to be phased in 2018, and it's going to be phased in as a percentage of salary replacement. And it is now deemed the most generous leave policy in the country, because it applies to all employers regardless of size. And so when you are a 6-person startup in New York, this is going to apply to you. There's going to be a coordination element going on there, right? It also covers full and part-time employees. Also new in terms of legislation. And it'll be funded by payroll deductions, which they're estimating to be about $1 per week per employee. And then San Francisco, I'm sure you've heard some of the rumblings, but it's here. It's going to phase in Jan 1, 17. And it's going to phase in as employer size, not percent replacement. So it'll apply to 50, 35, 20. Again, it's starting to impact emerging businesses, startups. You will have 45% of your weekly earnings for bonding paid by the employer. So no longer is it employer tax funded. And you can also leverage short-term disability income in that calculation. So it gets a little complicated, but just wanted to highlight those two. And then what we anticipate is 23 new states will be coming online in the next 5 years. And so we just talked with the Director of Innovation with the Department of Labor last week, and how are we going to standardize this experience, right? For HR, it's almost nearly impossible, and most people are saying don't try. You have outsourcers who will be talking shortly, but all the blue states, green, sorry, are enacted, well, we have a key here. I apologize for the complexity of this. But basically, and I want to update your stat, it's California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and New York who have actually passed paid leave. Washington State did almost a decade ago. So the voters said, yes, we're going to have paid leave in the state, but the legislators haven't figured out how to fund it. And they got away with that, which is fascinating. So we're happy Plus is here tonight to go fix all that. And so here's your employee. Here's the state and local regulators. Here's all the forms. This is what we're trying to fix. This should not be antiquated, form-driven. This needs to leverage technology. We think this is a great place for technology. And we're talking with Department of Labor's, EDDs, et cetera. And then when you make the case for parental leave, these are some points to think about as well as the ROI. All this package, this is something you can take away. Improves employee morale, family economics, et cetera. But I want to get into this one, that just by adding 9 weeks of paid leave, it reduces the infant mortality rate by 10%. That's a big one. This is something I want to call out. I think Sequoia does a fantastic job with benchmarking, and so know that this is a resource you can also use in making your case, that in order for us to attract and retain the talent that we're all competing for, here's where we sit in terms of our policy and benefits. In addition, you can see that, I love this one, the number of companies offering paternity leave has increased. It went from 6% over here to 20%, 6+ weeks or more, so that's very interesting. Keep that in mind. This is not necessarily a gender issue. This is not a mom's issue. I'm part of the Working Parent Support Coalition, which is a group of large employers who come together to disrupt paid leave in the US. And one of the companies there started a long time ago by offering very generous maternity leave in the 90s. And the other employers are saying, tell us, what have you learned? What have you learned? And they said, our biggest mistake was making it gender specific. We're dealing with the cultural impacts today and the lack of retention and lack of leadership being diverse, and we didn't anticipate that. So just keep that in mind when crafting your policies. And here's other questions: what will cover, who's entitled, and I want to also call out survey your employers and gain insights, or survey your employees. Apologies, I'm going to call out Miyuki here, who's from Pacific Gas and Electric, and I think they have done one of the most innovative things I've seen in the country, and that is they've applied Six Sigma to the parental leave experience. And they interviewed and found root cause analysis and what was the real actual problem. And their results are absolutely amazing and interesting and caused huge changes within Pacific Gas and Electric. So please stop Miyuki to learn more about that. So that's very innovative, applying new techniques to survey your employees. And then here's a list of resources. Also on the ROI Optimizely, I don't know if they're here tonight, have actually, their director of engineering published open source parental leave and showed the Excel spreadsheets they use to show the impact and retention. So on that note, no questions. I will be back in the room because I've been told to wait till the end. Feel free to reach out to me to learn more about Leave Logic or answer or explain any more on these slides. And I want to thank Sequoia for the opportunity tonight.
Great, thank you, Anna, and thank you. Obviously, there was a lot of great info on there for making this available after. So again, not only tonight, obviously, I think this is the start of a conversation for everyone, but we want to make sure that you guys are all walking away with great resources as well. So we'll be sharing that around. I know you guys get emails from Wes. A lot of this will be coming from Wes. Next, I want to introduce Gene, who is at Guardian, and they're a great partner of ours, and probably a lot of you are on their insurance policies currently. The reason I wanted to bring Gene in today is because more and more, again, as we continue to come in and hear about these programs and the questions that we're seeing from our companies, is a lot of companies are asking, should I be outsourcing this right now based on the size of staff we have currently? What is the proper time? So we really wanted to bring an expert in the space, Gene, to kind of talk about that, give you an overview, again, and just some questions to consider, hopefully as this just being kind of the start to the conversation for that. So I will kick it over to Gene. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. And good evening, everyone. I want to thank Robbie, Wes, and Sequoia for having me here today. And great to kind of share some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of leave administration outsourcing. I have my own personal child story, though. So as I was on my way here from the airport, I got a phone call from my 22-year-old daughter who graduated last month, and she got a job offer, so she was excited to tell me that she had received this job offer. She's a special education major. She got an offer to teach in a special education institute in Central Jersey, one of the larger ones. And then we proceeded to talk about what I was doing in San Francisco, because she didn't know. And as I talked about the topic of this meeting, she said, oh, well, the institute that I got the offer from actually has parental leave. And she was kind of excited about that and said she'd actually been talking about that with her brother. So that was kind of news to me. And, we've all seen the data, and, Anna had some great statistics about the trend. And, I think we all have seen that data, and we know that's happening. And certainly if you think about Silicon Valley and San Francisco, this is kind of the epicenter of where a lot of that activity is happening. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago where the question was being asked, is this just kind of a high tech or something that's happening in San Francisco or something that's just kind of West Coast based? Definitely bi-coastal. So here it is, New Jersey, my daughter kind of living proof. And this is, an institute for special education, and they're doing parental leave. Hold the mic up. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so anyway, that's my own data point to kind of support all of the statistics, the graphs, and the trends, and it's also happening out east. So what I want to talk about, kind of what we're seeing in terms of trends, not just with respect to parental leave, but I think, what you heard Anna talking about is the trends around paid parental leave. But as you think about the complexity, and she talked about that a little bit, right? So how do you integrate that? How do you coordinate that? How do you manage that with all of the other leaves? So as you design your paid parental leave approach, what are you doing with FMLA, corporate leaves of other kinds, vacation, sick time, sabbaticals, et cetera? So we're going to explore that a little bit and see what we're seeing in terms of trends in the market. So I'm going to cover trends in terms of adoption of outsourcing for managing leave administration, considerations and challenges that companies face when managing leaves, and the decision to shift from more of an in-house model to using an external partner, and then best practices for improving success when implementing an outsourced solution. So at Guardian, we do a lot of research. We talk to employers about their approach to managing leave, and we conduct a biannual study of employer activity in leave management. Guardian's latest research shows that a majority of employers, and this really is true for companies of all size, are attempting to manage absences more effectively. On average, 8 in 10 told us that they are taking at least some steps to track and reduce absenteeism. And these results confirm that this is, in fact, a growing priority for companies across the country. And of course, there is a wide range of steps that companies are taking here, right? From the most basic, some that are just simply getting started. They're looking to just set up a system to track and monitor leaves, to the more highly advanced. Those companies that are integrating data for doing predictive modeling, trying to reduce the incidence as well as the duration of absences. But companies of all sizes clearly reporting that they are making at least incremental progress in their absence management programs over the last couple of years. But despite the progress that they're making in their absence management activities, many tell us that, and this is especially true for those that are still managing their leaves in-house, their efforts are not really paying off. Nearly half say they've not achieved the company's leave management goals to date, and this result is basically unchanged the last couple of years. These are employers' top leave management goals, and many employers report that they see limited success thus far in these areas, things like enhancing productivity, reducing lost time, improving the employee experience. And why is that? Well, we know the challenges are still significant for many companies, and really, as laws continue to change at the state level, it's getting even more complex, especially for those attempting to manage this process in-house. So these are among the top challenges mentioned by employers that we surveyed. More than half told us that they need help interpreting federal and state leave laws and applying ADA and ADAAA policies. 6 in 10 said they struggle with keeping track of intermittent FML leaves, and 4 in 10 lack of staff to manage absenteeism with in-house resources. That's both bandwidth as well as having staff that have the expertise to be able to do this. But we know that more employers are outsourcing various aspects of their benefits administration, and that includes leave management. Starting with some of the drivers, we see that 2/3 of employers outsource at least some of their benefits administration. 1 in 3 are now outsourcing all of their benefits administration, and that's up 20% just in the last couple of years. And those drivers include things like compliance, naturally. Nearly 50% of benefits administrators that we surveyed told us they spend most of their time working to maintain benefits plan compliance as well as focused on lowering cost. And speaking of cost, number 2 is efficiency. 8 in 10 employers say lowering benefits cost is a top priority at their company, but only half feel they're having much success in handling that in-house. And then third is the employee experience. Many companies want to make it easier for their employees to access and to use their benefits to help improve workforce health, productivity, and retention. And employers that outsource report that they're having more success. They're reporting more positive outcomes. Nearly half of those that outsource their STD and their FMLA administration report achieving better outcomes, a much better result compared to those managing with in-house resources or even those that are outsourcing their disability but not the FMLA. Furthermore, those that outsource their STD and FMLA are also more likely to do employee referrals to health and disease management programs as well as to employee assistance programs, more likely to offer guidelines for absence duration based on diagnosis, more likely to have a formal written return to work policy, which from our research we know is one of the hallmarks of a best practice absence management program. So naturally, large employers are still outsourcing more of their leave administration compared to smaller firms, and as a result, they're also more likely to report greater success in achieving their goals related to improved compliance, cost savings, and service experience. But we are seeing smaller employers starting to catch up, and more are seeking outside expertise and the technology solutions necessary to address the increasing complexity of leave administration. 70% say they're using the same vendor now to manage all of these different types of absences. So, as part of this research, we have the Guardian Absence Management Activity Index. This measures the degree to which an employer is currently implementing leave management activities. The index is across all employers of all different industries and sizes, and on average, 3.7 is the index score out of a possible 10 points, and that's up only slightly over the last couple of years. We know that smaller firms, those with 50 to 250 employees, are more likely to be in the early stages of their absence management journey. Most of those companies are making efforts, yet they're doing it with in-house resources. And as you can see, larger companies have a higher score. They're more advanced in their efforts. Their average index score of 4.9 versus 3.5 for those smaller firms. So let's talk about, for companies that are just getting started or maybe just considering outsourcing, our research suggests there's a set of steps that have been useful to those that have just recently begun this process. And it starts with securing leadership buy-in within their company. Employers tell us that securing buy-in requires clear articulation of the key benefits to the company. So first, there's vendor compliance expertise, which is often led by an employment law attorney who monitors federal and state agencies. Vendors use rules-based systems that automatically apply the most up-to-date laws and help in tracking intermittent FML leaves, which we saw was one of the bigger challenges for those that were doing this in-house. And a vendor should be capable of administering all of a company's leave types. Productivity, number 2 on the list, generally linked to robust client reporting. So vendors should have easy-to-use reporting tools, intuitive, real-time data, a suite of effective operational reports that can be adjusted to division or location to help identify ways to improve productivity and lower cost. Leveraging vendor technology and resources rather than building and staffing with company resources also helps to lower administrative costs. And then consistency. That's another important benefit of outsourcing. Employers told us that their senior leadership wants to be confident that leaves are being managed fairly and objectively across the company in a consistent manner, regardless of the number of locations. Vendors using the same leave personnel to handle a lot of the company's leave requests is a best practice to look for. Outsourcing is an opportunity to reduce abuse as well. So employers tell us that their senior leadership team, they often don't know really how much their leave policy is costing the company. What percent of their FML claims, for example, are currently approved? Is that higher than it should be? Our research shows that HR is often overwhelmed and at times uncomfortable saying no or applying company policies fairly and objectively. It's an onus and a burden on HR at many times. And ultimately, outsourcing should achieve a better employee experience. A couple examples there would be a single call leave request process that helps to reduce employee stress, and having an omni-channel approach, the option of using a phone consultation, but for those who prefer, it's an online leave intake and tracking process. Better experience for many employees. Having leave and disability handled by the same entity also reduces documentation requirements. Again, a more convenient, easy process for employees. Litigation. It's on the rise, it's in the data, and compliance is not just a large employer issue. You've seen the highly publicized $20 million lawsuits against large cable companies, for example, but even firms with a few hundred employees that we've spoken to recently, they've faced litigation and sizable penalties. A nutritional services company we spoke to with 280 employees told us they were sued for $500,000, which could have been avoided if they had outsourced their leave admin for about $40,000. And of course, managers and supervisors can be sued as well as the company. So some of the most common reasons that we've heard for employer noncompliance include simply not notifying employees of their leave rights, leaves that will be counted toward their FMLA entitlement and they're not being told, or not communicating determinations to employees within 5 days of an FMLA request, failure to request an FMLA certification in writing, and so on. Being overzealous in terms of how much information is being requested of employees, such as medical records that date back too far, or unrequired certification from a physician. And then finally, a couple of others, being punitive. For example, counting FMLA absence toward the company's absentee policy for disciplinary purposes, taking disciplinary action for using a qualified leave, or failing to grant a legitimate and qualified request. And then finally, of course, wrongful terminations related to an FMLA request or a leave of absence. So finally, when outsourcing, we've identified a few of the keys to a successful implementation. How do you launch this so that you give yourself the best possible chance for a successful outcome? Well, first, have someone at the vendor who can manage the overall process, really a quarterback. And ideally, this person would not be the account executive or the account manager, but this would be someone with a much greater knowledge of leave management. They have experience working with FMLA. It's important also to clearly identify who is doing what, both inside the organization as well as at the vendor. One of the big surprises that we hear about from first-time outsourcers is that it still requires 40 to 60% of one FTE within that company to effectively work with the vendor to ensure a smooth implementation. Also the timeline. So we often hear from clients, okay, we're ready, can we start next month? So one of the other big surprises for first-time outsourcers, the lead time required can range anywhere from 90 to 120 days, depending on the size of the company. Existing policies are reviewed during that period. Systems need to be programmed to support employer-specific needs. And then there's time for testing, which we see a best practice being 45 to 60 days prior to effective date. Many employers assume that history and takeover will be very straightforward. That isn't necessarily always the case, right? The integrity of the existing process the employer has in place and the integrity of the data is key in determining whether history and transfer really makes sense versus starting with a clean slate. For example, records indicate whether there was a reply within 5 days. Is that true for your company? If not, that data may not be pristine, and we find that about 80% of companies these days are going clean slate rather than using history and takeover. Similarly, the quality of the eligibility data, critical to the program's early success. Getting IT aligned, both internally as well as with the vendor, very important to ensure an accurate electronic eligibility feed from day one, which of course helps to avoid problems down the road. And then finally, training and communication. These go hand in hand and are important to the whole change management process that will be very important as you move to an outsourced model. Employers tell us that the initial focus should be on managers and supervisors to help educate them on how this new process will protect them as well as protect the company. It'll be far more consistent, more fair, and a better experience overall for supervisors and employees. Ways that we see employers communicating through brain sharks, webcasts, demos of online reporting, all very helpful in terms of engagement and support, both with supervisors and with employees. And I don't think we are taking questions, so I'm going to skip right over. That's the end of this segment, but again, we'll be around to take questions later. Turn it back over to Robin. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gene. And again, I think this is really some high-level stuff that we wanted to talk on today. I will say, team at Sequoia is here to help with those things. Kara obviously mentioned the team at Connery as well, very well versed in these types of things. So please come to us. More than happy to put you in contact and look at those programs for your company. So I wanted to quickly also just bring up our last speaker here, who's Shannon, who's the CEO of Instacare. Again, one of the booths that we were talking about a little bit earlier. She's going to talk about a couple things that you can think about on the innovative side, and also I think has a little bit of some activity with you guys. So hopefully everyone brought a cell phone tonight. I think we'll be doing some engagement with that as well. So want to introduce Shannon, and yeah, thank you.
Hello, good evening. Let me just pull up my presentation. Does everyone have phones? Awesome, of course. Oh, that's my email. Oh, no, it's my investor deck. All right, so yeah, I'm Shannon. I'm from Instacare, and I'll talk about that in a second. But first, I know that I'm probably the only thing standing in between you and some wine, so I'm going to try and make this fast, and I'm going to try and make this fun. So I thought, we've all been up here talking about ourselves, and it might be a little fun to get to know you and get to know who else is in the room. So take out your phones and text Instacare to 22333. And make sure predictive word can sometimes try to change it to Instacart, which is not us. So make sure it says Instacare. And when you do that, you'll get a confirmation. So just put your hand up so that I know kind of where we're at and who's ready. You guys are fast. All right, awesome. So the really big question that's been on my mind lately, I think this is actually the question of the year, is who's your favorite baby mama? Beyonce, Adele, Kim Kardashian? So text A for Beyonce, text B for Adele, or C for Kim. Oh, whoa, here we go. Oh, little love for Kim, little love for Kim. Who else we got? Is Adele going to win this? Come on, where's the Queen Bey? She just launched a new album. All right, so yeah, Adele. All right, so I thought that would be kind of no one wants to push Beyonce over the edge here. Okay, so I thought it'd be good also to know what size companies are in the room. So just text A if you're under 50, B for 50 to 100, and you can see all the rest up here. Whoa, good spread. All right, so 100 to 300 seems to be the majority. That's a good size. So it makes sense that you're starting to think about family leave policies. And then how much paid maternity leave do you currently offer or strive to offer in the next year? And just pick the number that's closest here. What if I don't have mothers, I have fathers? Fathers as well. Yeah, put your father leave in. That's great. Okay, and then final question here. What's your cost to hire? So Kara talked a little bit about this, the cost of attrition. So on a $100,000 salary, just estimate what your cost to retrain, to recruit, lost productivity, what that might be. So 5% is $5,000, 10% is $10,000. Whoa, it's expensive to hire in this town, it turns out. All right, that's great. Thank you guys so much for participating in that. And keep your phones handy because we're going to use them again later. But for now, I actually want you to meet a couple called Kylie and Ken. So Kylie and Ken, they both work for startups here in San Francisco, startups that already offer paid family leave. Kylie is a product manager and Ken works in sales. This is their first child. They're in their mid to mid 30s, and they don't live nearby their families. Their families are on the East Coast. So that's a little about them, and I just want to also talk a little bit about what their experience was like. We heard from Kara about her experience working and starting a family at the same time, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about theirs. So I have some notes here as well. So Kylie was really nervous about telling her workplace that she was expecting. She worked on a team with mostly guys who were in their 20s and hadn't had families yet. So she was pretty nervous to tell her manager, talk to her team. She didn't know how she would manage expectations. Ken was very committed to going through this transition with Kylie. They made a plan. They were going to stagger their leave. So one of them would take a couple weeks off, then the other would take 2 weeks off, then the other would take maybe 3 weeks off. So the idea was just to bounce back and forth and share the responsibility. So in the run-up to the birth, about 3 weeks before, Kylie was actually put on bed rest. She wasn't eating right, her feet were swollen, she was wildly stressed, trying to transition her projects, trying to transition out of work. And she ended up being rushed to the hospital to have an emergency delivery. Her baby was born premature, put in ICU, and yeah, so when that happened, Ken, he had taken a couple weeks off, of course, to be with her and to go to the hospital, to be there for the baby. And in that time that Ken took off, Ken says that his title changed, his team had doubled, and he had a new manager. So Ken was really afraid to take more time off. He feared that he would potentially lose his job and not be able to provide for his family. So meanwhile, Kylie is suffering from postpartum depression. She says, our apartment was a mess. I had no idea how to raise a baby. I was angry, I was alone, and I couldn't even think about going back to work. So fast forward to now. The good news is that the baby is totally healthy, just had his first birthday. The bad news is Ken and Kylie both work for different startups. They didn't feel supported in their previous one, so they moved on. So this story is not unique to Ken and Kylie. I'm guessing that many parts of this story are actually shared by some of your own employees. So Yeah, let's just talk about kind of what it means to have a baby today, or how many of them are. Pregnancy is pervasive. There are 7.1 million pregnancies at any given time in the U.S. 90% of those were by millennials in 2014. So Silicon Valley is about to have a baby boom. This is who works for your companies, right? There's a birth every seconds, and today, new moms make up the largest segment of the workforce. So we all have to start thinking about this new segment of the market. And then let's talk about families for a second. Families are changing. So millennials, also an interesting fact, are the largest generation in history, bigger than the baby boomers. Totally reject male breadwinning models, right? Who believes in that? And most households, not just the millennials, but Gen Xers as well, are dual income households. So both parents usually need to work. And often don't live close to relatives. Ken and Kylie, their families were from the East Coast. And then when it comes to their own health, the health of their families, the health of their babies, millennials are sort of redefining health as having nothing to do with sickness or illness, but it's about the daily pursuit of exercising, eating right, feeling good. This is how millennials think of health today. So even though there's all this change happening here with families, over here there's still just this stagnant thing happening, right? Where still today, 1 in 5 women decide to leave work permanently the day the baby's born. Nearly 50% are leaving their jobs within the first 3 months of the baby being born. And we hear things like, am I even capable of returning back to work, right? Because when you're on leave, you're gone for a while, you lose some confidence, you feel disconnected, and you don't know if you're really ready and can get back into standing at a standing desk for 12 hours a day. So all that to say is that it's cool we're all talking about paid leave and how much time that should be, but also extra time off is not enough. And I think that that needs to be part of the dialogue, because you want your employees to come back feeling ready to be productive and able to hit the ground running. So the options that exist today in supporting this life transition, there's the paid leave, but Facebook offers $4,000 straight up cash. It's just like, good luck with your baby, here's some cash, go buy a baby stroller. There's egg freezing reimbursement. Fertility is very popular these days. Unlimited paid time off, of course, through Netflix. Full adoption reimbursement. And this is all amazing. This is awesome. But unless you have a company that's the size of one of these logos on the screen, you probably can't afford this yet. So that's where we come in. We're pretty excited about our approach, which is really to have an offering for you that's lower cost and high value, which is really perfect for companies around the size in this room. So we're calling this Hello World, and Hello World is prenatal and postpartum care. So we send providers to your employees' homes or to your offices, so they don't have to sit in waiting rooms. They don't have to take Muni across the city and it breaks down. So we send them that care, both prenatal and postpartum, and we help them answer questions like, how do I lactate at work? Or while I'm traveling for work? Or what about my bulletproof diet when I'm preggers? What do I do about that? That's actually a very popular question. Or, you know, this has come up a number of times, but how do I transition out of work? How do I manage expectations with my team and with my manager, especially for companies where the average age is younger? And very pragmatic things like, how do I get my baby on my insurance? So these are all things that we can work with you to make sure that your employers are getting these questions answered, to make sure that they're getting their forms in on time. We can just help you kind of create and stay on top of that checklist. Finally, for men as well, or for men, women, all types of families, how do I be a good supportive partner? Especially first-time families, they have no idea. They just think they go into the delivery room and carry the bag. And then I just need sleep. This is what we hear tons of. And we have a provider type where you haven't slept in days, or you just want to take a nap. So we'll send over a care provider that will watch your infant, do your dishes, do your laundry, just so that you can get some rest. So we're really trying to help your families kind of be their like favorite auntie who knows a little bit about health and can help them with this birth. So this is a high-touch, high-tech solution. It, I think, resonates with millennials. A lot of prenatal and postpartum care today, you'll see with like Kaiser and some of the kind of more traditional groups, they are definitely not offering this level of service. So we've got a table set up in the back. Alexander and Stephanie are back there. and you can go check out this cool box. So, and then there's this bullshit, right? What is this? Like, eggs, like women aren't chickens. Like, why are there eggs on a birth plan? And pink hearts, are we done with that already? Like, aren't we finished with hearts? Like, who wears hearts today? And then this, right? Fragile. Women are fragile when they're pregnant. Oh, like, help me, I'm so fragile. Bullshit. This is what women look like today pregnant. They make humans. These are like the first makers, right? Women make humans. So this is a little bit of our messaging. It's very contemporary. This is how we communicate with your employees. It's fun. And it's really about just shifting the dialogue and really just empowering these families to understand that this is not something to be embarrassed about. You don't have to feel ashamed. You can do both. You're strong. Something that we're all very passionate about. And this is the type of engagement we get from the family. So yes, we're working with Kara and Planet Labs and a few other companies early on, and they proactively engage us. We just meet them where they are. Text message, Slack, however they want to talk with us, we'll kind of meet them there. Yeah, we get photos of babies. This is part of my job. So yeah, that's Hello World for families. We get your families the preventative care they need. We provide career support. We have career coaches that really help them make those transition out of work and back to work plans. The care is convenient and it's personalized to them. You know, if you are a first-time mother who's vegetarian, you need a really different type of care team than if you're a second-time mom with high blood pressure. So we make sure that we get you the right team. And we're always on access. Your employees can text us at any time and we'll get back to them. And we also have medically relevant information. Our co-founder, she is a practicing OBGYN. She delivers babies twice a week at Highland Hospital in Oakland. And then finally for you, the employers, the HR, the people, we are going to help you save on attrition dollars and increase your productivity. So these employees are going to come back ready to hit the ground running and make you competitive, right? Because this baby boom that's happening, families or potential employees are going to really start looking to work at companies who do provide support for families in this way. And finally, of course, we want to help you retain more women, be family friendly, and just to this is for men, women, and families of all types. So adoptees, surrogacy, we got you. So yeah, Hello World is really that missing link between the workplace and parents during leave. And you know, I've heard from Kara. Kara's said things before, like when we have an expecting parent go on leave, they sort of go into a vacuum and we have no way of communicating with them. And you know, if we're investing in paid time off. If they don't come back, that's kind of a lost investment. So we can just kind of help you get a return on that investment. So speaking of investment, so I know that you all in the room get that it's the right thing to do, that it helps you stay competitive, but let's just talk about who your gatekeeper is for a second. I'm guessing it's probably your CFO or someone who has to approve the spending of money on programs. And so yeah, Kara went over that awesome slide with some cost savings for covering family leave, and what we've done is we put together a calculator here where, okay, let's do this. So if you're a company of 500 employees, you can expect a budget for around 22 expecting families. The national rate is 4.4% of any population. And say you've got 12 weeks of leave, $100,000. And what did you say that was, 37.5? 32.5 for cost to hire. Yeah, for a program, and you can put LeaveLogic's data in here, cost in here, you can put any company's cost in here, but let's just say a program, $795 per employee per month, that's gonna give you a cost savings of almost $300,000 and a 6x return. So that's something you can definitely, with confidence, go to your CFO and share. And we will make this available to you to show off to that CFO. I want to help you all make the case for this, so whatever you need. So yeah, change makers. That was the title of this presentation. And I just want to talk about that for a second. Two things. So I actually used to work for the mayor of San Francisco. I was his deputy chief innovation officer. Appointed, it was the first time a mayor in the US had created this innovation position, and I got to do really cool things like the Twitter tax reform and help sharing economy companies like Lyft and Uber stay legal in the city. But something I've realized having conversations with people and HR directors is that your jobs are not so different than that of a mayor, right? Like a mayor, and when you work for a city administration or any government at any level, your job is to take care of people, right? And you create the policies that govern them. And this is exactly what mayors do. So I've kind of realized in these meetings that when I get to talk to you guys, it's like talking to the mayor. You know, you're like the mayor of your company, which is, it's really cool. I just wanted to call that out because, yeah, I got you. I get it. Like, you have to take care of people and also show an ROI. And then second thing about change makers is I just wanted to acknowledge also your larger role in society because, you know, this kind of transformative change that happens where entire kind of paradigms have to be shifted, government is really slow to do this. Health insurance companies, they do it, but they're also pretty risk averse and a little slow too, let's be honest. And it's really... It's always been in history HR that's really on the front lines of creating America's safety net. I mean, from the days of like Ford motor cars, like, I mean, the private sector HR teams have really, like, you know, taken on the responsibility where there's gaps where government hasn't solved of really taking care of people. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out. And, you know, with the mayor, I worked with the private sector a lot, with big companies and startups. And in fact, it was always startups where we would go to look for not just change happening, but partners to make a change happening. Because this is truly, I know it sounds cliche, but it is where you find the thought leaders, the risk takers, the change makers. I mean, this is where you find them. So I'd say, you know, all of us in the room who are at startups and trying to change this antiquated, like 1950s pregnancy box of policies, like we're gonna have to do this because government is not gonna do it. So another cool thing I got to work on when I was at the mayor's office was I worked a lot with the White House, and I helped to launch the White House Champions of Change program. So that brings us to this. This is Instacare. We really want to create kind of a Champions of Change program and make you all champions of this very important change. Because, I mean, this is massive, right? Culture needs to shift in the workplace, but also in the mindset of policymakers. So it's a big deal, and it's not going to be just a few big companies that are able to do this. It's got to be like a lot of people working on this. So yeah, take out your phones again and shoot us your email because you will get an invite to be part of our Changemakers group, which we've got some really cool things coming up. We've got a roundtable at City Hall. There will be a bunch of thought leaders in the space there, and I'd love for as many people in this room to join. And then the second thing is we, Instacare, are going to offer your companies 1 hour Ask Me Anything. So this is Reddit style Ask Me Anything. Your employees get 1 hour with our providers if they want to start a family or just thinking about starting a family on their second child, whatever. We will be there to answer that questions. And this will help you also get a sense of what are some of the needs of your employees. So we're happy to have that conversation with you after the AMA. And then finally, Changemakers Summit. This is just a time where we all get to celebrate each other and some of the hard work that's been done and try and bring some very influential policymakers to the table to figure out, like, what is the agenda item? What can Silicon Valley do to actually help change this? So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you everyone, and thank everyone for being here tonight. I think, as Shannon pointed out, this is the reason we put this on was because we're really listening to what's big, kind of at the companies right now. This is a big topic. It's something that's obviously completely underserved, and we just want to be there to help, obviously, push these things forward. So thank you all for taking the time today. Thank you to our speakers. We have some nice bags here that please come up and get those as well. We do want to say thank you for that, and also just want to continue to have these types of events. Please see the rest of the people in the back as well. The tables here are doing very similar things to what Shannon at Instacare is, and really trying to kind of change the way we're looking at these different policies and how we can really help our employees and make a positive impact. So thank you again to One Login to hosting, and yeah, one more clap for that. One last just quick thing for Sequoia. Again, we're always looking to do this, so if you have any ideas about interesting topics like tonight's space, please come see Wes, who's sitting over here. And we're also looking to always grow our team. We don't normally plug ourselves, but if you know any good people that are looking, we would love to hear from them as well. So thank you guys all for coming, and we'll continue to do these things. And thanks again to the speakers. Appreciate it.